You ever feel like your brain is a web browser with just way too many tabs open? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive into that relentless feeling of overthinking and figure out how we can start to reclaim our own mental space. Wow, this quote it nails that sticky, chaotic feeling, doesn't it? The idea that thoughts can literally seep into my body and take hold of my mind. It's this vicious thought spiral that feels absolutely impossible to get out of. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it does. That feeling of being mentally tied up in knots, it's a super common part of being human, especially right now. But what is actually going on inside our heads when that happens? Okay, so let's try to get a handle on this feeling. The very first step to managing it is to understand it, to actually give a name to all that noise. Because once you can identify what your brain is doing, that's when you can start to do something about it. So here's a key distinction. Are we ruminating or are we overthinking? They feel similar, but there's a really important difference. Rumination, that's when you're stuck in the past, replaying conversations, thinking, if only I'd done this. Overthinking, on the other hand, is all about the present and the future. It's getting lost in the what-ifs, obsessing over every possible thing that could go wrong. And this brings us to this idea of ANTs, which stands for automatic negative thoughts. It's a fantastic term for how our brains can just defaults to the negative, almost without us even noticing. You can literally think of them like little pests invading your mind. And, one of the best ways to deal with them is to just see them for what they are. So if these thought patterns are a normal part of being human, why does it feel like they're more intense now than ever before? Well, it's not just in your head. There are some very real reasons why anxiety and overthinking feel like a full-blown epidemic, especially for younger people. Just look at this number for a second. Almost half of Gen Z has been diagnosed with a mental health condition. If you feel like you're struggling, this right here shows that you are so far from being alone. This is a shared generational reality. And this chart really tells the story of why. When you ask what's having the biggest negative impact, a few things jump right out. The constant comparison culture of social media, deep anxiety about career stability, and just general uncertainty about the economy. It's kind of the perfect storm for modern anxiety. And this whole environment has basically created a brand new habit: doom scrolling. We all know it, right? Just mindlessly swiping through an endless stream of bad news and negative content. It's literally like feeding our anxiety exactly what it wants, making that loop of worry and overthinking even harder to escape. There's this old Cherokee tale that I absolutely love because it frames this challenge so perfectly. It talks about two wolves that are fighting inside each of us. One is negative, it's fear and anger. The other is positive, it's kindness and hope. And the one that wins, it's simply the one you feed. Doom scrolling is feeding that negative wolf. So the real question is, how do we start feeding the positive one? Okay, let's open up the toolkit. We've talked about the problem, we've looked at why it's happening. Now comes the most important part: practical, real-world tools you can use to start fighting back and taking your mind back from that negative spiral. First up, let's name a specific villain: catastrophic thinking. This is that thing your brain does where a tiny little problem instantly balloons into the absolute worst-case scenario. It's a glitch in our mental wiring, a cognitive distortion that pumps out a ton of anxiety. And this story just makes it so real. This person tried calling their therapist, got no answer, and their mind immediately went to the worst possible conclusion. She's sick of hearing from me. She's going to drop me as a client. The reality? Her therapist's 6-year-old just lost the phone. It's such a perfect example of how our catastrophic thoughts are just stories, they're not facts. So how do we fight those stories? Well, a really powerful method comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and you can boil it down to a simple 3-step process. First, you just identify the thought, name it. Second, you challenge it, be a detective. What's the actual evidence for this thought, and what's the evidence against it? And third, you reframe it with a more balanced, realistic view. So using that story. Step 1, my therapist is sick of me. Step 2, the evidence? Well, just one unanswered call. Evidence against it? She's a professional. This has never happened. Step 3, reframe. It is way more likely she's just busy or can't find her phone. See, that simple process can just pop the anxiety balloon. And listen, CBT is a great tool, but it's not the only one in the kit. There are others. Things like mindfulness can help pull you out of the future and anchor you in the present moment. Journaling is an amazing way to dump your thoughts out of your head and actually see the patterns on paper. And honestly, just getting involved in things you find fulfilling can be a powerful antidote. It's all about finding the right tools for you. So let's say you start using these tools. You start to quiet some of the noise and create a little more space in your head. What do you do with that space? This last part is about the bigger picture. It's not just about stopping bad thoughts. It's about what you choose to build in the quiet that follows. This old Buddhist tale presents two really different ways of looking at this. One student says the mind is like a bright mirror that you have to constantly wipe clean of dust. It's an endless chore, right? But then the master comes in with this radical idea. What if there is no mirror? What if your mind is already clear and there's actually nothing for the dust to stick to in the first place? It's the difference between always fighting your thoughts and realizing maybe you don't have to. And that really brings us to the heart of it. Maybe the goal isn't to have a perfectly silent, empty mind. I mean, that's pretty much impossible. Maybe it's about understanding that thoughts will come and go, but we get to choose which ones we focus on, which ones we water and help grow. It's about cultivating your inner world. So the real question isn't just how to stop overthinking, but what do you want to grow in that space instead? What will you plant?